Hello, my friends, and welcome to live coverage of GP Birmingham. It's time to get underway with our next round here, round number 12, of course. My name's Riley. I'm joined by the Pro Tour champion, Dr. Simon Gertzen from Germany. And Simon, Chris, Arlo, Ivan Flock, Exxon 2, they're fighting for their tournament lives here.
Yes, they are forced to go undefeated here if they still want to make top 8. This is always a tiebreaker scramble, but with this size of a tournament, you know that you cannot afford any more losses.
So here we can see very obviously that Ivan Flock is on Eldrazi Tron. I caught up with him as he was running around chasing down the final pieces of his deck earlier yesterday. Chris Arlo, however, is playing Abzan mid-range. So this is a deck that has been around. It's one of these, green-black based 55% decks. And I don't know, could be in a good position here, obviously, if Arlo is at Exxon 2. He's obviously piloted it skillfully. But Abzan, it's one of those decks that doesn't have a lot of bad matchups. One of the bad matchups it does have, however, is against Tron.
Yes, especially against the big mana Tron. The Eldrazi Tron is a bit better, but it's still a very scary matchup to play.
So a Shockland taking Chris Arlo down to 18, and Dark Confident also going to do a bit of a number on his life total. Bob isn't again a card that's been on the radar. He's sort of among these forgotten heroes of the modern format. Lightning Bolt, Remand, Dark Confident. What's happened to these cards, Simon?
It's a pity because all of these are great cards. Dark Confident not in the best position right now. However, I think as it becomes less of a mainstay, it somehow becomes better again.
Okay.
We see less people playing Electrolytes, for example, which was always a disaster.
Thought Not Seer coming down on turn 3 thanks to this Eldrazi Temple, and Flock is going to have the pick of the litter here, take apart Arlo's hand, Liliana of the Veil, Path to Exile. Let's see what Flock wants to work with here as he quickly jots down the contents of Arlo's hand here. And it's going to be Liliana of the Veil that hits the bin, unsurprisingly there.
Yeah, that was an easy choice for Ivan.
So, we see Fatal Push revealed to the Dark Confident. And if Arlo can find himself something like a fetch land, he'll be able to deal with this Thought Not Seer post-haste. Indeed, of Marsh Flats hanging out in his hand. So this means that Thought Not Seer can be removed. And I would say that's probably a pretty smart thing to do. Arlo can cash it in for another card. Find himself something else to work with, perhaps, and of course get in for 2 points with Dark Confidence. So a tidy play here for Arlo, not the end of the world.
Arlo knows that there are some other heavy hitters coming. He saw a second Thought Not Seer, Reality. I don't know if he saw the Reality Smasher, but also at least one of the Endbringers. So Ivan will have plays for days here with Eldrazi after Eldrazi. Chris Arlo has to keep up with his removal, but Dark Confident may be the best way of doing so.
Well, let's cast our eyes over the deck list of Ivan Flock, and as fragile as a 2-1 is, I don't know that Flock has come prepared to get rid of cards like this easily.
For Walking Ballista, card we see in Standard, that's probably the easiest, maybe the only way of doing it. Flock is actually playing the version with the main deck Basilisk Collar.
Yes, indeed. Very, very good indeed with a card like Endbringer, another way for him to ping creatures up and down the battlefield. But no super quick way for this Dark Confident to be removed just yet by the look of things. Not a Walking Ballista hanging out in Flock's hand there, Simon?
No, I didn't see one. Actually, he drew a Meta Reshaper, so he has almost all the different Eldrazi in his hand.
Well, Thought Not Seer number 2 coming down. Let's have a look at what Arlo's working with. Path to Exile in response, meaning that isn't going to be able to strip a card, strip that removal spell from his hand.
Yeah, but it does see the freshly drawn, what is it, Liliana?
I think it's a Liliana. It's Liliana the Last Hope, in fact, in addition to, of course, the Lingering Souls there. So Lingering Soul's a nice one to snag with a Thought Not Seer because, of course, it will be exiled rather than discarded. But Liliana the Last Hope also very, very threatening. Her ultimate comes around real quick.
Yeah, I don't think you care so much for the 1/1 Spirit tokens. If your opponent gets 2 or 4, I don't know. It doesn't seem like something that will race you if you're playing Eldrazi, because Reality Smasher doesn't care about it, Endbringer doesn't care too much about it. Whereas these Planeswalkers are always a bit more scary. Even if you are holding Reality Smasher, I would just go safe here.
Well, Flock, having a think about it. Even though the Thought Not Seer has hit the bin, of course, he does get to resolve its first ability, even after its second ability has come and gone.
And the difficulty, I think, for Ivan is he is basically planning his next few turns already. He knows that if there's a Liliana, he would want to reality smash her. And I think Chris doesn't have a creature in the graveyard. So maybe he knows that this Liliana, if Chris plays it, doesn't really do anything. And he prefers his opponent to have it.
Scavenging Ooze off the top for this Dark Confident. This Confident is really helping Chris Arlo to pull ahead here as he continues to peel card after card off of the back of Bob here. Thoughtseize.
That's a huge draw.
That's a big play here for Arlo as it enables him to disrupt Flock's next turn right when he needed to. Although between Endbringer and Reality Smasher, certainly Arlo with a fair bit to get through here.
Yeah, but getting rid of one of them for a single mana, that's the dream start. It's still a battle, but now it looks a lot more manageable.
Arlo settling on the Endbringer here. It's going to mean his Liliana can be put under immediate threat thanks to the Reality Smasher.
Also his life total.
Yeah, that's very true.
The Dark Confident has generated some nice value, but if you look at the race, it's actually not so clear if you're winning against the Reality Smasher. Also, once Reality Smasher comes down, you are actually forced to trade for it 2-for-1. Or you draw the Liliana of the Veil, of course. But yeah, not so clear.
Mindstone. And the follow-up play of Reality Smasher. And in for 5 here. So Arlo choosing to play his Scavenging Ooze. And he's knocked down to 7.
Yeah, we could actually see an untapped forest here.
Down to 6.
Immediately grow the Scavenging Ooze.
Doesn't seem like a bad play here. And indeed, Simon Gertzen, as ever, with the Soul Read.
It's still... it's funny how Chris had a creature on the battlefield continuously, and he's 10 points behind in the life race.
In life, yeah, that's true.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that Dark Confidence has been there since turn 2, and I think it's drawn him 3 or 4 cards.
Yeah, he's approaching turn 5.
So gains a life off of the Scavenging Ooze. It's a 3/3 now, and an Overgrown Tomb off the top is going to continue to keep the cards flowing with Dark Confident.
2 lands in a row for Arlo, not what he wanted. And always this scary thought of a second Reality Smasher.
Liliana, the last hope now. May indeed be the last hope for Chris Arlo. As the Reality Smasher becomes shrunk down to size just a little bit here. And Arlo is going to look to make some attacks as well. So the fact that this Reality Smasher is now, what, a 3/4, means that this Scavenging Ooze is able to go toe-to-toe with it here. And that's smart play from Arlo. Not exposing his Liliana of the Veil to too much danger, taking a hit, obviously, from the Smasher, but using that time to play the Ooze, shore up the defenses a little bit. Flock continues to search through his deck now. We see Mindstone cycling away. Looks like an Expedition map was inside it. And we'll play the Expedition map, play the Mine, and play a Matter Reshaper. So Flock has dumped his hand out. We're going to see the Scavenging Ooze eat up another creature, go up to a 4/4. And Arlo has put the shields up. Marsh Flats off the top, thanks to the Bob, and a Maelstrom Pulse as well for him.
That's looking quite good now.
Yeah.
He found... In Scavenging Ooze, he found a creature that could actually mingle with the Eldrazi, and it wasn't immediately dealt with on Ivan's side. He certainly tried to look for an answer with the Mind Stone, but now the Scavenging Ooze plus the card advantage of Dark Confident are a very potent combo.
Now, he's got some very live draws here, Ivan Flock, because, of course, he can get something like an All Is Dust, for example, as we see Marsh Flats and Maelstrom Pulse hit the bin to take care of this Reality Smasher. And All His Dust would certainly turn this game right on its head here.
And Ivan is about to go for the Tron.
He's full Tron. He's going to be fully Troned out. Expedition map and the mana to activate it mean that we will have the Mine, the Power Plant, and the Tower assembled. As Arlo also goes Hellbent. We've seen Liliana activated. I assume it was on the Matter Reshaper. I did miss that activation.
Yes, it was.
So
Matter Reshaper is a 1-2, and that means Chris has no interest in attacking.
It'd be a 1-1, surely.
Sorry, yes, 1-1.
So there's his tower. Now, Even Flock did not crack the expedition map.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So with the option of finding that final Tron piece that he needed, the power plant. See the mine on the battlefield there as well as on your screen. The power plant, the only card that he needed to snag there. And has he just drawn it naturally? He has.
He has.
What a champion.
But maybe he actually realized that he doesn't need the mana right away.
Okay.
And if he draws something expensive, he can still use the expedition map. And there might be other cards that he might want to tutor up. I don't know exactly which lands he has.
Well, something
available.
like a Seagate's Wreckage perhaps might be of interest to him.
If he has the time, yes. But that would be a card. I don't know. Do you have time to start drawing cards?
He's under a fair bit of pressure now. This Liliana has certainly helped to steady the swaying ship here. Matter Reshaper shrunk down again.
Is Arlo going for the ultimate? It looks like he's taking a very defensive stance
Well,
here.
the ultimate is just it is just absolute pure inevitability.
That's absolutely true. And even something like All Is Dust would not beat it unless, of course, you can find it before Liliana Ultimates.
Now, once that emblem is on the battlefield, you are facing an uphill battle any way you slice it, and this is so the power of Liliana the Last Hope, even against non-creature decks, even against control decks. The fact that she can ultimate so quickly means that the emblem can really take over a game in no short order here.
3 mana Planeswalker that protects itself and ultimates for 7, 4 more than the starting loyalty. That's doable.
Yeah, highly doable. Seagate Wreckage pulled out of Flock's deck, just like we were discussing, Simon.
Yes, and now Ivan drew an expedition map, not what he wanted to see, but he can empty his hand and get a new look at a new card, which means basically it's a race. Ivan trying to punish the slow approach of Arlo, and Arlo hoping that he can get there before Ivan draws something to break this game open.
So, 2 mana from the power plant will power out this expedition map.
I believe there are not many creatures in the graveyards, maybe 0.
Maybe they've all been eaten up. You would think so, based on the fact that Arlo did not activate his Scavenging Ooze. Now, he's down to 5, thanks to this Dark Confidant, which again has remained here uncontested for the entire game. And Arlo has paid the price of greatness here.
Ivan decided to wait with the Seagate Wreckage. He wants to use it at end of turn, I assume. Just to have the maximum chances at drawing into All Is Dust and being able to cast it, I assume.
So Lingering Souls hits the exile zone as we have now 4 Lingering Souls tokens, little 1/1 Spirit Skis.
Actually, there are a lot of cards that Ivan is looking for. He could also find a Walking Ballista. He has a Karn Liberated. Reality Smasher probably not enough because of the amount of blockers that Chris has.
Yep, and looks like Arlo is not interested in attacking whatsoever, as he continues to keep the shields up. But a Walking Ballista could be huge here for Ivan Flock. He's drawn a card, and he's going to draw another one. Both of them played very close to he's on that Yam Win Chung life here, not giving us a look at what's going on. So 2 cards in hand remaining for Flock.
It's actually tricky to navigate. If you draw lands, you don't want to sacrifice your expedition map prematurely, because then you cannot activate the wreckage anymore.
Flock slowly considering his options. 2 cards in hand, both of which are a mystery to us here in the booth. Didn't get a good look at what they are.
Yeah. If neither of them can deal with the Liliana, or at least one of the loyalty counters on Liliana, he will have to empty his hand and find try to find All His Dust in a last-ditch effort. But it looks to me like he has something to cast. Otherwise, he wouldn't get that land, I assume.
So Expedition Map searches out a tower. That's another 3 mana here for Flock.
All His Dust in hand.
All His Dust in hand. Okay, so there we go. That's going to turn things around, you would think. Thought Not Seer is the final effort for Flock to strip apart Arlo's hand here. And All Is Dust. This guy, geez, what a powerful card. Especially when you're playing only colourless permanents.
And this card is punishing Chris for his defensive approach to this game.
Yeah.
There was an alternative to go much more aggressively, which would have given Ivan one more draw step because of Matter Reshaper, which is what Chris decided against.
Well, we talked about the importance of this card. We talked about the fact that it is one of the outs that Flock has, and he seems to have hit it here. So Arlo draws off of his opponent's Thought Not Seer. Inquisition of Kozilek hits the bin. Or the Exile Zone, I should say. And now an All Is Dust. Here it is. Powerful sorcery coming down, and that's going to absolutely tear apart Chris Arlo's board. It takes away every single one of his non-land permanents and leaves Flock behind with a 3-2.
And Chris is facing lethal.
Oh dear, and it's a Thoughtseize off the top as well. Arlo has lost it. So Ivan Flock pulling a victory out of thin air, you'd have to say, despite Dark Confident being there from turn 2 to about, what, turn 8? Turn 9? All the cards in the world aren't going to help Chris Arlo after All Is Dust completely flipped the script for Ivan Flock. And this is exactly how we said he was going to win Simon Gertzen. He needed to find that the tribal sorcery, and it got the job done for him. So well done to Ivan Flock, the Pro Tour champion, up a game after the first one has completed. These guys are going to hit the sideboards. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of this, of course, Games 2 and perhaps even Games 3 between Ivan Flock and Chris Arlo here from GP Birmingham. And welcome back to the feature match area, ladies and gentlemen, here at GP Birmingham. My name's Riley, and the steady hand on the tiller guiding us through these turgid waters. And alongside me, the first mate and court jester, of course, it's Simon Goetzen. Don't know why a court jester is on a ship. The metaphor kind of fell apart just there. But the cabin boy, scrubbing the poop deck, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Simon Goetzen, the Pro Tour champion. Of course, the Peanut Gallery, wherever you are around the world, such a pleasure to have your company as Chris Arlo and Ivan Flock go toe-to-toe once again in the feature match area. Of course, we saw the Pro Tour champion, Ivan Flock, get up on the back of his All Is Dust just before Simon.
And that was a really close game.
Indeed.
One more turn and we see Liliana's ultimate.
So Arlo within a sniff of pulling that one together. But unfortunately for him, Flock was able to stitch a win together, and well done indeed to him as he looks to defend this X2 record heading into the later stages of day number 2. Abzan mid-range deck that I'm very happy to see at the top tables of Modern. I think it's again exemplifying the enormously diverse format that we've explored this weekend. Death Shadow has been, of course, pinging on people's radars all weekend. However, it hasn't been utterly dominant.
No, not at all.
Scapeshift was a deck that I was expecting to see a lot of amongst the top tables as well. And again, it's had a presence, but there is no deck that has come here with a huge big target painted on its forehead.
There were 3 decks with about 10% metagame share on day 1.
Okay.
And they were Grixis Death Shadow, Scapeshift, and Eldrazi Tron.
Mm-hmm.
So they are, I think, followed by Affinity. So the top 4 decks of the format right now are pretty clearly defined.
Well, the top 7 cards of Chris Arlo's library are pretty well defined as well, but they're going to be shuffled back in because he doesn't like the look of them. Ivan Flock seems happy with his opener, however.
Yeah, when you look at the sideboard here, because it's clear that the Abzan deck needs something to break this matchup.
Okay.
And actually, Chris is playing 2 Fulminator Mages. I think those could be huge.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get down one early, maybe destroy an Eldrazi Temple or an Urza's Tower. That's something that he can do, and he can somehow upgrade his removal. Maelstrom Pulse is just much better against the heavy hitters of Eldrazi Tron than some of the cheaper, like Abrupt Decay kind of cards.
Even Fatal Push is not at its best against Reality Smashers and Endbringers, so Maelstrom Pulse certainly is going to get the job done there.
There's always this... if you're really desperate, you can bring in Stony Silence and hope that you're hitting enough expedition maps, but that's usually against the bigger mana.
This is against the green-based ones, for sure, because they also play Chromatic Spheres and things.
Something I've seen this weekend is people sideboarding almost identically against both decks, because they're both Tron decks, but that's a little bit too simplistic. They play on completely different axes.
Oh dear, Chris Arlo now down to 5. That's unfortunate for him. Even Flock sitting pretty on 7, so already the screws begin to turn in for Arlo.
Yeah, Arlo, by the way, can also go for something like Damnations.
I think that's a good pick.
And Gideons.
Mm-hmm.
But it does mean that he's playing once again this slower game, where especially All Is Dust can just completely take him out.
I just think Damnation is a very important tool because the Eldrazi deck can go so wide on the battlefield with Matter Reshapers early, Endbringers late, and their answer to Damnation isn't great. There's no real way for them to punish you for a sweeper like that, and I think that is something that you can, especially if you're wanting to deploy Planeswalkers and things like that as an Abzan deck, you can get the job done. But
it is a way to victory, and you have to somehow create these ways for victory. I think in game 1, the way to victory was clear. It was keep the pressure high, keep attacking, and once Chris stopped attacking, he had this one life threat, basically, which was the Liliana ultimate, ultimately didn't get there.
Well, Arlo now looking at 5 cards. It's very, very difficult to convince yourself to go lower, and he is going to keep here. Looks like a Path to Exile on the top. I think Arlo's on the old one-land arena here. It's going to stay on top as well. Interesting. Okay, well, we're off to the races now with Arlo kicking things off with us. And it's going to be a Verdant Catacombs.
Surprising to see Abrupt Decay in Chris's opener.
Yeah, sure. There's a 2 of as well.
There is the threat of Chalice of the Void, but with Abzan, you're not a deck that's called to Chalice.
So Arlo scryed, after drawing a one-lander, he scryed a Path to Exile to the top. Perplexing choice there, seeing as he would want to hit his land drops, but obviously he values Path to Exile that highly.
Yeah, but what's your game plan? Sitting there with one land and pathing the first card that
I don't like it. I don't like it. I think I would have scryed that below and tried to find another land, but in any case, Arlo has made his bed, and now he gets to lie down and try to have a snooze in it. While Ivan Flock continues to hit his straps. Expedition map. Eldrazi Temple, Ghost Quarter.
You can see here, Ivan, despite knowing that he's tremendously far ahead, still takes his time to make sure that he is making the best plays possible.
Flock now. Expedition map. What's he going to hunt for here?
He has one temple. If he, depending on his hand, he can just have a brutal turn 3 Reality Smasher draw.
We do see the other Eldrazi Temple come down thanks to this expedition map. And this could be the beginning of a very quick end for Chris Arlo, given the fact that he is sitting on the one land.
Of course, with a very unfortunate sequence of draws there.
Yes, mulligan to 5, not where you want to be, of course. There is the Eldrazi Temple, and here is Reality Smasher. So Arlo being attacked for 5. I think we're going to see this Path to Exile deployed. But after a mulligan to 5 and no lands, 2 for wanting yourself to take care of a creature and also give your opponent a land? Oh dear. Oh dear.
3 damage as well. You only get 2 of your 3 colors.
Godless Shrine. So Arlo needs to find lands. He needs to find them quickly, and they need to be green, and they need to come into play untapped.
His hope has to be that the Eldrazi deck floods out, which does happen sometimes. It's playing a huge amount of mana sources to support this kind of gameplay.
Looks like Arlo did bring in those Gideons, looking to leverage them, but it's not going to happen just yet, with one of them being exiled, or sorry, discarded to take care of the Reality Smasher's trigger. So Arlo having to spend a lot of cards to give his opponent essentially, again, a free land, and you would imagine that Flock still is sitting on some bitterness in hand.
Yes, I would be very surprised if that's all that Ivan had. Forest into Tarmogoyf would be a good start. I think discarding Gideon, partly because Chris wanted a Planeswalker, wanted that extra card type in the graveyard.
That's also a very good point, of course, for the Tarmogoyf Arena or something like that, but Chris Arlo not able to find the second land, so Ivan Flock, he can continue to dominate this game in any way he sees fit. 1 and 2 of these temples means that Thought-Knot Seer is going to come down. There is the double Abrupt Decay, the Tarmogoyf, Tireless Tracker, and Maelstrom Pulse. All options for Flock to snag here. What are you looking at here, Zeman?
The Abrupt Decays are an easy no. I think Tarmogoyf is strictly better than Tireless Tracker, especially in this situation. And you could go for the long game and say Maelstrom Pulse will kill one of my threats, but I would take Tarmogoyf here. With your opponent needing to top deck that land, and if they do, still not having any place, that's like a dream scenario. Yeah,
the Abrupt Decay is not at their best against Eldrazi Tron. Obviously, Arlo recognises that they do have a role to play, as we see some dynamic lighting coming in through the skylight in the roof. Look at that, the sun poking its fearful head out against this English countryside. There's a stampede for the door as all the English folk here go to see what this flaming sky orb is about. What's going on? Seems to be some kind of blue background instead of the grey skies of England. Ghost Quarter after a Mindstone. And a Blooming Marsh here. That is the turn. That is the land that he would have been looking for. But of course, that Tarmogoyf's been stripped out of his hands, Simon. He's not going to be able to play it.
Yes, this is
brutal stuff.
Adding insult to injury.
Yeah, for sure.
And Tarmogoyf would have been 4/5.
Yeah. Would have been a big boy
because of the discarded Planeswalker.
Flock continue to make land drops, and it's Wormcoil Engine now. How about this one? How about this one? Says Ivan Flock, and Chris Arlo looks at his double Abrupt Decays, and oh dear. And even Maelstrom Pulse here off the back of this third land is not going to help too much, because it'll just split the worm in 2.
And this feels as helpless as in the old days when you were fighting against the traditional Tron decks, because they were also pummeling you with Wormcoil Engines, Karns, Ula Mox maybe, and this is just a really lopsided matchup. One of the reasons why Abzan midrange is less popular than in the past.
An absolute evisceration. Abzan midrange stumbling, mulligan to 5, not finding its land drops, and unfortunately now, as a Relic of Progenitus cleans up that graveyard and cycles for Flock here. And a reason why Flock is just able to completely dominate this match, not only because of the stumbles of Abzan mid-range, but just being outclassed on pure card quality. A card like Wormcoil Engine, geez, what a house. What a beater. Followed up by Expedition Map.
Okay. Flock doesn't have much more than this Wormcoil Engine. But
Well, you speak too soon, Simon. He's got a second Expedition Map.
There is not much in the format that deals with the Wormcoil Engine cleanly.
No.
Or, well, at least the cards that could are not generally played in Modern.
I mean, Path to Exile is a nice clean answer to it, but of course Arlo has already burnt that one on an earlier threat. Reality Smasher was quickly passed out of the game there by Arlo.
And now you can only chump block if Ivan lets him.
We do have Dark Confident. We do have of course, Tireless Tracker as well. Looks like it will be Bob, though, that's going to make his appearance. And it's back to Floch. Leaving those Expedition maps on the battlefield here. Is he able to find a piece of removal to take care of this Dark Confident, win the game on the spot? Endbringer, the draw. Flock goes up to 32. Arlo stays at 5.
Ivan also threatening to find a Walking Ballista to just win the game.
Yes, Walking Ballista more or less is a proxied colorless burn spell. It's really changed the texture of Modern in small ways. The company deck has brought it in as a way to dump all its infinite mana. Tireless Tracker comes down for Chris Arlo, but also, of course, in these colorless Tron decks, Walking Ballista giving you some reach at a very at a steep cost. 6 mana for 6 mana Lightning Bolts. Not exactly the market price, but you'll still accept it.
Yes, and getting access to direct damage in a effectively colorless deck is something huge.
Yeah.
Which actually the Eldrazi and the Phyrexian mana cards make such a deck possible. In the past, you wouldn't be able to generate a wide enough range of effects with only colorless mana.
Yeah, but now cards like Dismember, cards like Walking Ballista. Flock cycles his Relic of Progenitus here. And an attack now with the Wormcoil Engine is going to push him up to 38. Chris stays at 5 thanks to his Tireless Tracker.
Does he have Tron? No, right? Only two Tron pieces on the battlefield.
6 mana now, and we may see Endbringer come. Oh, sorry, no, it's Hangerback Walker. Hangerback Walker for 3, and Pithing Needle as well. Pithing Needle on your clue.
I don't know if that's actually allowed.
That may not work because it's not actually a card, is it? Well, it's not going to matter too much here as even Flock takes out the game, but that's an important point to notice.
I will double check that and make sure that this that Flock is aware of that.
Yeah.
It's an obscure rule to know, because it seems like it's a permanent in play. Why should you not be able to name it?
But it's not a card.
Exactly.
No.
It's not a magic card.
No.
It's a token. So that's just a public service announcement at this point, because, I mean, this game was over.
And we thank you for it, Simon Goetz. And, of course, you've always got the hearts and the minds of the people listening at the forefront of your concern. We're moving to another table as soon as we get things settled on them there. But, I mean, the first game, I think, was a very interesting exploration of this matchup. We saw a bit of back and forth. We saw Arlo in a strong position early. Ivan Flock attempting to sort of get his way back into it, and then eventually that Dark Confident and the Liliana kind of running away with the game there for a bit, Simon. But of course, Flock was able to reverse it by having drawn a very timely All Is Dust.
Just in time, and only because Seagate Wreckage got him those extra cards.
That was the way that one panned out. Right now, however, it's time to check in with another match. We've got Ivan De Castro Sanchez and George Channing. These guys undefeated. The only undefeated players left in the tournament, as far as I understand. And this will be the end of this undefeated record should it not go to a draw. So both of these players will be looking to really, really dig deep and defend their records so far. And at 1-1, doesn't seem to be a clear person who's ahead here.
Yeah, and we see basically the tier 1 deck of the format in Grixis Death Shadow facing off against a really interesting build of the Bunt Nightfall deck, because it's at the same time it's a human aggro deck. So we see a hybrid deck that's going with Champion of the Parish into all these all these human synergies, of course supported by Collected Company, but even the Castro Sanchez also put at least a few Retreat to Coralhelm in his deck for the combo with Knight of the Reliquary.
So he's got two copies of that Retreat to Coralhelm. Of course, with Knight of the Reliquary, you can more or less win on the spot, thanks to things like Kessig Wolfrun, and we already can see the stomping ground that powers up the Kessig Wolfrun there. But I would say more ordinarily with this Bant Nightfall deck, you see, you know, the classic cards, the classic sort of green-white based cards that come in. But this one, yes, as you mentioned, is much more geared towards the human element, with Avacyn's Pilgrim, as well as things like Noble Hierarch, obviously, but Mayor of Averbrook, Thalia's Lieutenant. These are the cards that are going to reward you for these tribal synergies. And I tell you what, even De Castro Sanchez has obviously done a very good job so far. 11-0.
We saw him win a really close match against Lantern.
Okay.
To go undefeated round 9. I think you were already on your break. You were already done for the day, but Marijn and I, that was a really close one, and of course it took quite a long time to finish, and the Lantern deck ultimately couldn't get the lock together. But Nightfall has quite some tools, almost like a toolbox sideboard.
Yep.
Supported by all these creatures with comes into play abilities and so on. Here we see actually the Knight of the Reliquary doing some pretty nice things. Even though the combo is not in place, you do get to filter out lands from your deck and draw cards with Horizon Canopy.
Yes, Knight of the Reliquary, a card that has sort of been on the fringes of Modern for quite a while. The Retreat to Coralhelm was a card that threatened to push it over the top, and certainly, you know, it's interesting. It's another one of these sort of green-based mid-range decks, much like the Counters Company deck, that has a strong game regardless, and then this sort of combo finish that can get you out of nowhere.
Exactly.
The tribal synergy is a very interesting thing to be able to explore here. De Castro Sanchez with all sorts of very odd synergies. I mean, we've got cards like Reflector Mage. We've got cards like Eternal Witness, as you mentioned. Vithian Renegade's out of the sideboard as well. Comes into play and disenchants, or sorry, destroys an artifact. It's got a shatter effect as well.
That was crucial against Lantern. But at the same time, you see that Ivan's deck is a bit weird here. He now draws an aggressive 1-drop in Champion of the Parish, when what he wanted to see was Retreat to Coralhelm to go off with his knight.
Champion of the Parish comes down. You can see a Blessed Alliance in hand for De Castro Sanchez.
And Blessed Alliance could be huge here. The Knight of the Reliquary has already grown to a 6/6, I believe.
I think it might even be a 7/7.
We don't see all of the graveyard, so George Channing looks like he's not able to attack, which does mean the Knight is growing and growing, and as long as Ivan is generating value with these activations, he's happy about it. But we might also just see him get the Kessig Wolfrun at some point to just threaten lethal.
Here it is, and another Windswept Heath hitting the bin. So I think at this stage the Knight of the Reliquary is a 7/7.
But that seems a bit early to me to already start attacking. You have to be
8/8. Go on, sorry.
You have to be concerned about removal, right? Or George just blocking, double blocking maybe.
Yeah, I mean his creatures are enormous. Tasigur, in addition to the Death Shadow, means that this Knight of the Reliquary isn't really in a position to burst through.
Okay, you could make the argument, which is actually a really interesting argument. You could make the argument that George doesn't have a removal for the Knight because he would want to stop you from generating all this value.
Okay.
So, for example, if you had a removal spell last turn, you should have killed the Knight to prevent it from searching out more value lands. Because of that, Ivan could make the conclusion that George is not holding a removal spell for the Knight, and could go for lethal because of it.
Kozilek's return the play for Channing here. Instant speed sweeper, looking to clean up those little 1/1s there, and does exactly that. But that's an interesting point here, an interesting bit of reasoning from you, Zimon, here, because of course, as you mentioned, if Channing did have a removal spell, he may be looking to take out that Knight before Sanchez had got his value off it, but certainly right now it is a huge, huge big beater.
Yeah. Channing also now made his Death Shadow larger, so it's a 9/9. If Ivan plays a land, now we have to start counting, and unfortunately we don't see all of the lands.
It is a 9/9.
The knight is also a 9/9.
It is a 9/9.
So that would leave George on 1 if he blocks with the Death Shadow. So Ivan would not have lethal here.
So even to Castro Sanchez. Collected Company in hand. He can grow that knight to a 10/10.
Also Blessed Alliance, right? Blessed Alliance might give George 4 life.
Oh, yes.
Speed.
And shrink the Death Shadow. The secret mode. Hidden mode.
Or Ivan is not comfortable attacking. That's the alternative, because he does have Collected Company. What if George's last card is Stubborn Denial? That's all. That's something that Ivan has to think about.
Well, ships. Was sitting on an Engineered Explosives.
Explosives for 3 looks amazing.
Inquisition of Kozilek now. De Castro Sanchez in a difficult position here. He can cast the Blessed Alliance rather than have it be taken, but I mean, what, just to gain 4 life?
No, I don't think you want to do that, because wait, you do have 6 mana, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, yes. Then I think it's a good play. You do get that extra mana from the knight.
Yeah, the Knight of the Reliquary does have a sort of it is able to ramp you here. Hallowed Fountain fetched out for Sanchez. It's going to pump the knight to a 10/10 thanks to the 8th land hitting the bin. If I'm not mistaken, there are 8 lands in Sanchez's graveyard here. And so now Blessed Alliance is able to gain Sanchez some life. Or indeed Channing, if he wants to shrink the Death Shadow here. That would be a very techie play.
I think he can target himself, just gain 4 life.
Gain 4 life.
The thing is, he wants to kill George in 1 hit with a huge knight. So it doesn't really make too much sense to give George 4 more life. It's like a zero-sum game. You give your opponent 4 more life, shrink his blocker by 4, so it doesn't really accomplish too much.
So Sanchez sitting on this Collected Company here. And Channing figuring out how he's going to navigate this. It's a tricky position for him. But 4 mana means that Sanchez will be able to fire at this Collected Company. Channing with an Engineered Explosives for 3. So this knight's days are numbered.
But George is now fully tapped out. So if Ivan can do the math and he will see that this is lethal, he doesn't have to fear anything.
So Sanchez now.
He just sacrificed
Breeding Pool.
He sacrifices a green source, which could be relevant for the Keswick Wolf run.
Looks like we're going to go and see a Misty Rainforest hit the bin as well. That will also grow the Knight of the Reliquary, and that will search out a forest as well for a Collected Company.
He does get the forest, so he does have once again the mana to activate the
Keswick Wolf run.
The Wolf run.
Yeah, so important here to be able to do that, because of course the Stomping Ground providing the red, Forest going to provide the green. And the Knight of the Reliquary now, I think it's pushed up to an 11/11 or even a 12/12. So 6 cards off the top here for Sanchez. He's going to be able to put 2 creatures into play, should he choose to, and I can see Athalia's Lieutenant amongst them.
And those actually grow the knight further.
Oh, they do. Well, they trigger off each other as well. So this knight is really looking to get frisky here. Huge, big trampling beater. Another Knight of the Reliquary is could be another enormous play, but it looks like Sanchez is looking to finish things off here.
So the interaction of Death Shadow with Trample is a bit weird, a bit counterintuitive.
Go on.
If you are not careful and you just trample over the Death Shadow for what would be lethal damage, then it will actually survive because you're damaging the opponent at the same time. So you have to solve this formula.
Jeez.
For how to defeat the Death Shadow. It's not relevant in this spot.
Nope, not at all, because an unblocked Thalia's Lieutenant gets pumped by the Keswick Wolf run, and that's going to take Channing out of his Exa and O bracket here, and even De Castro Sanchez continues this undefeated run. Wow, Simon Gertzen, what a performance from him.
Impressive deck. Like I said, it looks like it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's basically 2 decks shuffled into one.
Yeah.
But it works.
It works. Absolutely it works. And he's done very well to keep his keep this undefeated record unblemished as moving forward. We'll keep a close eye on him in the coming rounds. My friends, it's time for us to step out of the booth. We're going to take a break. And on the other side of it, Richard Hagan will be stepping into the booth with the Pro Tour champion, Ivan Flock. You're not going to want to miss it, my friends, so stick with us. We'll see you back here live from GP Birmingham in just a few moments.